Good afternoon, everyone. Tanya Williams here, author of A Child-Free Happily Ever After. Now, we're back today again with another child-free choice conversation. I'm talking to the fabulous Nikki, and I've actually interviewed Nikki for my book when I wrote it. And we were introduced through a mutual connection who told me that I should talk to Nikki because she was fabulous, and how true that was. So it's a beautiful day here in Brisbane, Australia. The sun is shining. I've even been out by the pool today. It's been that warm, which has been absolutely fabulous. So loving this weather, and bring on summer, I say. So before I bring Nikki on, I just wanted to have a quick chat and give you a bit of an update where everything is at with the new website. We will be going live probably in the next week or so with a brand new website that is going to be a community for anyone child-free, but also those women who aren't really sure what they want or haven't figured it out yet and want a supportive group of women around them who can help them with that decision in terms of, I suppose, sharing our child-free life and sharing our stories. The whole point of child-free choice conversations is to really shed some light on this whole child-free discussion, share the stories, because everybody's story is totally different. The reasons behind choosing to be child-free are often very different, and it looks quite different for most women as well. So I think it's really important that we have this discussion and we do whatever we can to change the negative dialogue that is out in society. And that is the whole goal of the book I wrote, A Child-Free Happily Ever After, is really to change that dialogue and say, stop being judgmental and criticizing and start supporting each other's choices, because it's all about the C word, which is choice. So I can see Nikki's coming up here. I'm going to invite Nick on, and we will any technical issues and we'll be all good to go. So it's just coming through here now, looking for Nikki. Here we go, we're connecting. Oh, here we go. Hey.
Hey.
Hello, gorgeous.
How are you?
I'm good.
That's
I'm
good.
loving the haircut.
Yeah, I've gone quite the chop actually. So something different for summer.
It looks fabulous.
Thank you.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come and have a chat with me today.
It's my pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you, gorgeous. So let's dive straight in, shall we? Now, obviously, I know a bit about your background and your story, but everyone watching doesn't. So can you start by introducing yourself, telling everyone, I suppose, about your situation in terms of relationship status, child status, and then we'll sort of start to delve in, into some questions as to how that's all come about and what your story is.
Sure, no problem. So my name is Nikki. I'm 43. I live in Brisbane. I am very happily married, and it is very much a happily child-free ever after for me. So my husband Steve and I have been married for 6.5 years. And yeah, we just live together in a place about half an hour outside of Brisbane in the country. We've got a cat, and we've got a wonderful, happy little family unit. Sans children.
Love it. Sans children. Absolutely love that, hun. Okay, so let's dive into the big question about your choice not to have children. And as I mentioned before, I mean, we've all got different stories as to how we've come to the place that we're at. So yeah. Can you share for everyone, I suppose, what that journey has looked like for you? Have you always known that you didn't want children? Has this been, something that's just evolved the way that it has? Like, would love, to share that story with everyone.
Sure. Well, I wasn't always adamant about being child-free. I think sort of in my 20s, I was ambivalent. If I did, I did. If I didn't, I didn't. So it wasn't a big conscious thought for me either way. My friends started to sort of have kids in our late 20s into our early 30s, and it wasn't at that point for me. I actually looked at that with a lot of envy and really coveted what they had in terms of, the husband, the family, the children. I myself was single for most of my 20s and early 30s. So interestingly, at that point, I actually very seriously entertained the thought of going down the single mother by choice path, which is another fabulous choice that women make. I did a fair bit of research. I talked to as many people as I could who travelled that path themselves. So, and it was definitely something that for me was felt like, you know, the only option, you know, if I was to have children, that was how it was going to have to be. But I distinctly recall one particular conversation I had with an aunt of mine who she'd been a single mother sort of 2 times over at 12-year intervals. So she'd done it twice. And she made a comment to me that really resonated, in that she said that as much as she loved both of her children and would never have not travelled the path she had, she recognised that they, who, you know, by then were in their 20s and 30s with their own families. And she, sort of there in her late 50s, early 60s, just said to me, at this point in my life, you know, I love my children, but they've got their own families, as they should, and I'd really love a companion in my life. And it was really quite, it sort of made me stop in my tracks, because I thought, I felt like for me, I wasn't looking at the right things. When I was meeting men, you know, my brain, whether I realised it or not, was just automatically going into that, you know, are they father material mode? And that would have come through. And so it was probably no surprise that I was single for as long as I was. So I actually did a lot of introspection then, and just reflection on what was driving me down that path, that I felt so compelled, you know, that my life wouldn't have had meaning if I didn't give birth to my own offspring. And through that was a good year or two, I really kind of arrived at a place where I thought, you know, there are actually many ways that you can mother children. You don't have to give birth to children. I have girlfriends who've got children that I'm very close to, and given how important my own that aunt of mine had been for me as an older, you know, mother type role model, I thought, you know, that's a role I think I'd play really well. So all of that strong maternal urge that I felt, you know, I could just direct into these other beautiful children. So I actually was really comfortable with that, you know, as my my lot in life, you know, the crazy lady with the cats. And and interestingly, I then met my now husband. So I was sort of 33, I think, when we met. And he was probably more in the, you know, I'm happy to not have children camp, but would say to me, if it's something you really want, I know you've really wanted it in the past, I'd happily go down that path with you. So in the early days, I just used to say to people, I just don't want to share Steve yet, even with our own kids. So I kept just sort of saying it was, you know, it's not for us right now. But I think probably sort of sooner in our relationship than later, it really became clear that we didn't feel like we needed children in our life to complete our family. So, like I mentioned, I'm still super close to those, you know, young ladies now, the children of my friends. And I really cherish that role. I take it very seriously, and I make a point of, you know, being present for them. But as far as feeling the need to bear my own children, it just never came back. People would say to me, oh, you know, you wait, you better have them, you'll regret it. But thankfully, we just sort of stuck in our lane, and we've not regretted it. We've got a really fabulous life.
Right. And I love the fact that you've sort of, I suppose, been on both sides, where you're sort of like, yeah, okay, I might have them, and I'm going to go down, I'm going to explore this path, but then hang on a minute, is that really the right thing? And I think the fact that you did have that introspection and go, well, hang on, what is it that I actually really want? And what does that look like? I think is great, because I think too many women probably don't take enough time to go through that process for themselves. They sort of jump into one, you know, oh, yeah, I'll have to have them, or, you know, time's running out, or whatever that might look like. But I think it really is important to know yourself and spend some time to talk to people like that around you. And as you said, you made a really good point about the fact that mothering comes in so many different forms. So it's not, you don't have to have your own biological children to be motherly or be able to nurture and give back to kids. And I think that's a really big and important point that a lot of people miss when it comes to having the conversation with child-free women. I think everyone hates children, and that's not the case.
No, I just choose to play a different role in the lives of children. So, I agree with you. I think my perception of, you know, some people, and obviously I don't know for certain, and you know, I'm not being judgmental, but certainly sometimes it appears to me that some women, that it's almost you know, they're just following a script, ticking the boxes. You know, and look, don't get me wrong, I'm sure, you know, there's lots of happiness in that, but for me, like I guess what you advocate is it's about making that, and I even throw the word conscious in there, conscious choice,
Yeah.
make it a really conscious choice either way.
Yeah.
Because, each path has its own ups and downs.
Very, very true. Exactly. There's pros and cons to both sides, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that you spent that time and knew yourself as well.
Yeah.
To know, and the other point that I really love, that you made that I really love was around knowing that we didn't need children to make us feel like a family or to fulfill something like you're happy within yourselves. And I think that's a really misunderstood thing with a lot of child-free couples, as people go, well, you're just too selfish, you're too busy out partying and all this. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's about the fact that we're enough for each other. Like, we don't need that extra thing in our lives as well. And again, that's not a judgment about women who have that. But yeah, I think that's a really important and often missed point in this whole discussion is that there are other ways to have that fulfillment, and there are other ways to give back by being an auntie and mentoring and all sorts of things, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for you, Nick, like what does that look like in terms of, say, with your friends' children? Is it just spending time with them? Do they come to you advice? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, it's all of the above. I like to take part in significant events in their lives, say, for example, school or sporting events or achievements, and I celebrate those things. I like to, however I can, make time to spend time one-on-one with those kids, even if it's, picking them up from swimming for my friend, just because to me, true connection is formed not through the superficial, let's go out and, to movie world for a day. It's through the drudgery of life and really connecting and being a part of their life and enjoying the highs and the lows. I think I probably do also play a little bit of a mentor role. I'm particularly thinking of a few young ladies in my lives who are sort of early to mid-teens and even pushing 20, where, I really enjoy that they come to me for advice. And, one of them, I can't wait to start teaching her how to drive. Her mum would they'd kill each other in the car. So that's going to be my job. So it's those meaningful life events for me that create true connection. And so that's what I seek out in those relationships.
Yeah. I'm a bit the same, I suppose, being an auntie. Like, I love spending that time with them because our nieces and nephews are, 1,000 kilometers away, so we don't get to see them that often.
Yeah.
So when we do, it's really great to be able to spend that time and play silly games and be the crazy auntie that comes in, buys them lollies and then leaves. Like,
there is that.
I love that. But it's obviously a bit harder to have those big life event moments where you're doing what you're doing. But in saying that, my friends that are local that have got kids, it's great to see them and spend that time with them. And Shane is great with kids. They love him. I think he has this childlike quality that they resonate with. I'm like, you're just a big kid yourself half the time. And it's funny, we'll often have a barbecue or something, and if we've got friends over that have kids, you're like, where's Shane gone? And he's in the lounge room watching kids movies. It's like, so it's not about not liking children. It's just like, for him, that's a novelty. You go, I can sneak off and watch, whatever this stupid kids movie is that he wants to watch, and spend quality time with the kids, and they love that. And I think that's being able to have that balance and do that. Obviously, gives us fulfillment as well as I think the kids as well, right?
Oh, definitely. I like to think so.
Yeah.
They're not very forthcoming in sharing their feelings, but I like to think it makes a real difference in their life to have someone like me that's sort of like mum but different, and they can come to me with anything, and it's really special to me. And
how is Steve in those sorts of I suppose, is he a bit like you, or he likes spending time with kids as well, or is he a bit more like, oh yeah, okay, no, not really, or what does that look like?
He's probably a little bit more ambivalent than I am. So not that he's he's anti-children, but because I probably did go down that partway down that path of really truly seeing myself in that mother role. It is something that I probably more naturally gravitate towards. But having said that, Steve adores these children as well, and it's clear that they adore him. And I think the other thing I also like is I like that Steve and I also represent just a different life family unit type role model for these young
Yeah.
young people as well. So you know, they can see, you know, I like to think, you know, Steve and I have a fabulous relationship, and you know, I hope that they look at that and say, wow, that's a beautiful family, you know, even with our kids. So it just presents another path in life that people can take.
So I want to sort of talk more external factors now.
Yeah.
How has your family been with your choice and your decision growing up? Have you ever felt pressure from your immediate family, or have they just been, no, just do what makes you happy?
Yeah. So both of my own parents are completely supportive of my decision. Neither of them have ever questioned or even said anything of why are you thinking that, Nick? You know, are you really sure? You know, they've never ever behaved in a way to me that suggests they're anything other than, you know, totally 100% team Nick, which is really beautiful. Having said that, I'm sure if I did, you know, if I had chosen the single mother path, or if I, you know, Steve and I had decided to have kids, they would have been thrilled whatever the path I took. So I feel really blessed that I have not been I've not felt any pressure from my own mother and father. There probably was a time several years ago, my stepmother, who was just dying to be a grandmother, and I was the only one of, you know, the kids still living in the same city as her and my father, and she'd jokingly say, go on, Nick, just go and get knocked up, I'll look after it, you don't even have to do anything. So thankfully her own children soon after that started, you know, their own family, so she got the grandchildren fix. So and I'm pretty sure that was more in jest, and, you know, not a definitive, you know, please go and do it. I think I do detect from my father-in-law, Steve's father, disappointment. I think he struggles to understand why we've made this choice. So I think I know that, well, Steve's an only child, and his parents lost two children before, one soon after and one at birth. So Steve was a very cherished, very much wanted little child. And I think Brian, my father-in-law, just can't understand why you wouldn't want to go down that path, which, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and, you know, I'm sure he'd be thrilled. He would have been thrilled if we had gone down that path, but it's not like it's created a rift in the family by any stretch. Yeah.
Do you think that's a generational thing, in terms of that generation, that's what you did? You had children.
I think that's definitely a part of it. It just, you know, it was just conditioning that was how families went. And, you know, it's, you know, women being even able financially and societally to sort of support themselves and whatever is a new thing. So a lot of these factors are sort of probably only really come to the fore in our generation. So I think you're right. There is an element of just not getting it. It just wasn't the done thing, you know, when they were sort of in their 30s or so.
Yeah, well, it would have been, you know, unheard of, most likely in the generation, you know, in our parents' generation, because that was just not what happened. You know,
exactly.
You had children. A lot of time, if you didn't have children, it was because you couldn't, and that was it.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a little bit confronting, perhaps, for that generation, because exactly, they don't understand why you would make that decision, and I think sometimes they struggle with that, especially if they have really wanted children or something has happened, you know, that hasn't been, you know, their choice. Which I sort of get, but I think, obviously times are changing, and we, you know, as women, we have so many choices available to us now that we never had in the past as well. So we're really lucky in that respect.
Absolutely. Yeah. So so like I said, it doesn't cause a rift in the family, but you know, it's just, we're happy how we are, and that's, we don't certainly feel like we need to. I would never be the sort of person that would have gone down that path due to external pressure anyway. So that was never a risk of happening with me.
Yeah. What about from friends or close friends? Have you? I know I have actually, I suppose, lost a couple of friendships due to my choices, and I've done that on purpose, because I didn't need that sort of negativity or that judgment in my life. Have you ever experienced that with any of your friends where they've just been pressuring you or just, you know, telling you you've done the wrong thing, you're going to regret it, and it's been, you know, quite hard on the relationship?
Definitely not from close friends. All of my close friends, you know, they know me and they know, and it's their children that I've got these bonds with. So
Yeah.
definitely not from close friends. But I have felt, and I'd say it's the exception, not the rule, but people that I just meet more like socially, or, you know, that I wouldn't, you know, say are people I catch up with regularly. I might see them at certain social events at annual, you know, yearly intervals. And people from that perspective have made comments to me like, what, you know, you're crazy, you'll regret it. You just, I think I might have been maybe 37 or maybe 38 or so at the time, and they're like, you know, just before you turn 40, just, you know, make sure you have a kid, it'll be the best thing you've ever done, you'll regret it if you don't. And it didn't matter what I said to this particular person in this instance that I'm thinking of, she just could not comprehend that for me it was a conscious choice, and, you know, that was, and I was so adamant about it. But, you know, it's interesting, and I mean, I certainly don't take it personally. To me, that just speaks volumes of what her sort of values and frame of reference are, which is she's totally entitled to. But I do find it interesting, the whole that how people feel that it's okay to say, oh, you know, that to someone they hardly know, you'll regret that. It's like, hang on, you don't know me at all. Like,
I struggle with that. I really do. I think, especially if, as you said, they're not close friends and they probably don't know you all that well. It's just like, hang on, how are you entitled to an opinion about my life, which on something that has absolutely no impact on you whatsoever? And I think they actually mean to come from a place of good, to go, oh no, but I know how much I love it and I don't want you to miss out on that. So I get that. But I think when they're so adamant about it and they're so forceful about it, I think it actually says a lot more about them and their position.
100% agree with you there. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the more that this particular person that I'm thinking of, the more she sort of was at me about it, the less I took it personally, because I just thought, this is nothing to do with me. This is
about you.
So, which is fine. But interestingly, I also probably find more often the reaction from people that I meet, like in social settings, you know, when it comes up in conversation, oh, have you got kids? And I say, no. And I love to just dive straight in there and say, no, child free by choice, because you know, when someone tells me they haven't had children, I'm even guilty of thinking, oh, maybe she couldn't have kids. And it, you know, so I put it straight out there so they're like, they don't feel like they have to change the subject. And I have some interesting conversations on the back of that. There are a lot of women that I think sort of, you know, when I dive out, no, child free by choice, and they sort of go, oh, and I can see it sort of shocks them, but then they kind of go, they go, yeah, I could see why you do that. Which it is almost, I don't know, maybe sometimes a hint of jealousy there. I don't know, but you know, people definitely go, yeah, I can see how you'd choose to do that. You know, kids are great and we love them. You'd never not have them, but holy crap, you know, you turn your life on its head in ways that you think you expect, but you just can't anticipate.
Yeah. I had this conversation with one of the girls in a past one of these interviews, and I think people often take it the wrong way when someone talks about the fact that they might have regretted having children. And I think what typically happens is people judge them straight away. Oh my God, you're a bad mother. And it's just like, no, it's not about saying that you don't love it. And I know most of the women that I've spoken to about this have said, love my kids to death, wouldn't change that for the world, but holy crap, this is hard and I wish someone had told me. And if I had known what it looked like, I wouldn't have made the same choice. And I think there needs to be more of those types of conversations happening, because what's happening at the moment is women are scared to speak out about it. Yeah. And they're really, I know even the women I spoke, they interviewed for the book, wanted to be kept anonymous because they didn't want people to judge them and say, oh, you're a horrible or a bad person for feeling that way. And that's really sad to me, that a woman can't come out and say that and go, I love my children to death, you know, but holy, this is hard. And why isn't that in society, you know? It's so
I'm kind of losing you.
insular, but it's sort of like we have to pretend that it's all happy, and sometimes it's not, you know.
Exactly. And I don't know whether it would be that these women who say they, you know, regret having children, I don't know that it would be even so much about making a different decision, but maybe even just going about the decision they made differently. So think, you know, is it the preparation financially, emotionally, mentally, like logistically, like all of those things, having conversations with their partner or their husband before the children come into the relationship, and really as a couple dealing with the change that brings into their relationship. And there are ways you can deal with that change that, you know, you manage the adverse impacts, but I suspect many couples possibly don't. Communication goes out the window. So sometimes I think it's about that, you know, it's not a black or, you know, if I didn't do this, I'd do that. It's like, well, if I didn't do this, maybe I would have just done things differently, is also to me, that's part of the conversation. And going, if you want kids, that's great. But, you know, get your strategies for how you're going to deal with your fights with your husband when you're both on 2 hours sleep, you know, like those sorts of things I think go a long way. But I think I sympathize with ladies who feel like, you know, they sort of maybe regret having kids, or maybe we could have stopped at 2 instead of gone to 3, or those sorts of, I hear those sorts of comments, like, you know, when it went to 3, it was just, we were outnumbered, you know. So
I think and exactly that. Now I'm going to ask probably a bit more of a personal question as well. Did you and Steve have that conversation about, okay, are we having kids or not having kids before you got married? And was it a definitive, I know that you've sort of changed over the years, but was that a conversation that you guys had?
Pretty much from when we got together, the position was, because he'd said, I know you wanted to, you know, how do you feel now? And I said, well, nothing's changed. Like, I still actually don't, you know, I got to a place where I was mentally and emotionally totally okay with never having my own children. Just because I've met you, that hasn't actually changed. I kept paying attention and waiting for it to change, but it did. And you know, I'd say to him, I'll let you know if the urge comes back. But it didn't take long for me to recognize, to realize that the people would say to me, oh, you know, as you get closer to 40, the desire will get stronger. For me, it was the opposite. It was almost like, well, no, I don't know what it is. Maybe my eggs are dying quicker. I don't know. I'm just, the more time goes by, the less close I would ever feel like going to, you know, choosing that path. So I would say we did make the decision. It was never I think if I had come to Steve at any point and said, actually, you know, something's flipped, something's changed, I really want to do this, he would have been open to the conversation for sure. But it wouldn't have been something, you know, like I was explaining before, I wouldn't have done it lightly if it did get to that. But no, we definitely talked about it, and a lovely life, you know. There are plenty of other people out there that can reproduce for the population.
Yeah, that's right. It actually amazes me how many conversations I have, or I overhear, or I'm part of in some way, that that a lot of women aren't having these conversations before they're getting married, and then, you know, they're getting married, and then 2 or 3 years in, it's like, oh, we're having kids. My partner's not here, and the one's like, no. It's just like, to me, I find it really interesting to see that people don't have that conversation about something that is so major and such a major part of a lot of relationships. Yes. Now, that just baffles me. I'm like, how can you get married to someone not knowing if you want children or not?
That's a good point. I've heard the odd couple who, you know, like you say, they sort of go down the matrimonial path before really resolving some of these massive life decisions and where they sit on, you know, on those, particularly having kids. So it's, I'm always intrigued as well. I have come across, and I hate to say it, but, you know, there was a woman I met many years ago who tricked her husband into, like, you know, secretly stopped taking birth control. And needless to say, the marriage didn't last. But, you know, that communication is the key. You know, that's the other C word. It's choice. It's communication.
So many levels.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that sort of scenario is I mean, and unfortunately, that is not an uncommon thing, where people think, well, that's going to save a relationship, or, well, I want it, so I'm going to do what I want, and it's so unfair on the partner who doesn't want the child
Yeah.
because, I mean, kids pick up on that resentment. You know, that has psych impacts. It obviously has relationship on impacts. Like, you know, the whole relationship is impacted. Like it's like this ripple effect, you know, that just sort of filters
Yes.
out. And yeah, I suppose I personally don't understand that because I could never do that to somebody. But unfortunately, there are women, as you said, that who think that that's perfectly acceptable because, well, that's what I want. So I'm just like, oh, that's just so wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and just
he'll love the
makes me
child
quite
when
angry to hear that.
he'll love the child when he meets them, when
When
they
he
come
sees
along,
it.
that old chestnut. Yeah. But and the other point that you're making there as well,
exactly right.
the other point around people thinking that, you know, if a relationship is on the rocks, that having a child can address that. That's another scary scenario, I think. So yeah, I mean, like you say, to me, it's just about, it's the choice, it's being conscious and communicating that with your partner and your family. And like you've done, like you said, you've done with, if there are people in your sort of circle who are very judgmental of you for your choice, then as you've done, you just need to cut that out of your life. Like, you don't need that that negativity. And I think, like we were saying, I think that's, you know, says a lot more about that person's insecurities or beliefs or whatever stories they've got attached to having or not having kids. So
and as you said, most of the time it's not your close friends, because your close friends know you. They, you know, they accept your decisions, they support your decisions. And I've always said that, you know, I've got friends with 4 kids, 3 kids, you know, like every from one extreme to the other. Love them all, love their kids, and at the end of the day, I mean, as a friend, you want to be there and support their life choices as long as they're happy. That's all I care about.
Exactly.
If you're happy, I don't care how many kids you've got. I don't care what you do.
Exactly.
Just, you know, be happy and live your life for you. Where I do get, I suppose, a little bit sad is where I know that someone's not happy, and you know, I can't really sort of do too much to help them or whatever. And you know, but at the end of the day, we all have our own life and our own path, so we have to do, you know, we can all make those choices for ourselves, right? But it's I remember the one person that I'm thinking of in my particular situation was a girl I went to school with in high school, and we sort of lost touch. And then, like Facebook does, you find people again. And she messaged me, and the barrage and the comments and the stuff that she said to me was really horrible. About, oh, your life doesn't amount to anything. You don't have kids. How sad, you know. And it was just like, okay, at what point did you ever think that I'm not happy? I love my life. I have a fabulous life. The fact that you've worked at the same job for your whole life, been, you know, and lived in the same place your whole life and whatever, and now you want to, you know, put all this stuff on me, I actually think says more about you and you being unhappy and lashing out at me because you see me being so happy that she just couldn't, you know, compute this whole thing. And yeah, I just went, you know, I don't need that. I just don't. Block, see ya, bye. I don't need that.
Exactly.
You go and deal with your issues. They're not your issues. It's but yeah, I think that's the thing. When it's about surrounding yourself with like-minded and positive people who accept you for who you are, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you, I suppose I'd love to, I suppose a couple of questions there. One is around the career path when it comes to children. When you were going through that decision where you're like, well, if I have to be, you know, a single mom and having a child, I assume that part of this whole process was, well, what does that look like for my career as well? Like, if I do that, how will it impact it? What might that do? Is that something that was part of that sort of consideration when you were making that decision?
Interesting question. I haven't been asked that before, actually. And the answer is, it was a factor that I considered, not from a should I or should I not do it. This is when I'm thinking the single mother option. Yeah. It never factored in as a reason I wouldn't have done it. It simply factored in as one of the things I'd have to sort out. You know, I do have a very blessed with a wonderful career, and you know, and I would have been in a position probably for that career to have allowed me to save up, take some time off, it never occurred to me
Yeah.
to do anything other than, you know, my path would have been going back to work. And I find that I said sort of basically raised two children, 12, you know, one born in 72, one born in 85. So she did it twice. And she was an incredibly intelligent woman. She was a very successful journalist. So I guess she was probably the closest thing I had in my life and in my mind to what I perceived single motherhood to look like. And it still, in my frame of reference, included a successful career. So, and I think that was almost possibly part of what would drive me, you know, part of what when I sort of really reflected on what was driving me so much to want to have children, one of the things that sort of came up for me was around, you know, I just wanted the opportunity to give a young person, you know, a great life and a perspective on, like, you know, and I guess in my mind, I probably would have been wanting a girl, so I could raise a, you know, a young, strong, beautiful, independent soul. Sort of would have absolutely been the path that I took.
Yeah.
So
really interesting. In terms of it wasn't going to sway it either way. It was just more of a factor that had to be taken into consideration as to how you manage that.
Yep.
And I think
in the same way I'd go, oh, well, what car would I drive? Where would I live? You know, it just was one of those things I would have had to organise, which didn't daunt me at all.
I love the fact that it was such a considered thing, and you've thought about this whole scenario in terms of it's all that day-to-day stuff that impacts how you deal with the whole situation as well, you know. And I think more younger girls coming through making these types of decisions need to consider more of the practical nature of this child and what this might mean to everything from career to you know, school drop-offs and, you know, where you live and all of that sort of stuff. And I love the fact that you shared that, because I just think that's something that I haven't, that no one has, when I'm spoken to them, has articulated before. And I'm like, that's really cool that you've really gone, yeah. Excellent. Thank you. I suppose my last question that I want to address is advice that you might give someone else. So, you know, why I'm doing these interviews as well is for other women to see, you know, what a child-free choice looks like, hear our stories, get a bit more of an understanding so we can start to change this dialogue. But I also really want to have impact on women who aren't sure yet and are going, I really don't know what I want to do, what that's going to look like, and so forth. Someone advice. So say someone's, you know, in their late 20s or early 30s and they're going, I don't know what I want. What advice would you give them in terms of trying to make that decision for themselves?
Yep. So I think it's the 3 C's. So choice, in firstly acknowledging you have a choice. Yep. And that phrase, oh, I have no choice in this. You do have choice. And even if you think you don't, guess what? You actually do. Whatever you've done to get you to the place you're at has been based on choices you've made. So my strongest advice is around those choices, make them conscious. Think through the implications. Question the assumptions and beliefs that you are holding about whichever path, and just really test that they are true, that as you can when it's based on hypothetical. So choice. And then that 3rd C being communicate. And communicate to your partner, to your friends, to your family, to other women. Communicate with Tanya. You know, it's test your thoughts and your ideas out, and speak to people who've travelled the various paths before and listen to their experience. It doesn't mean yours will be the same, but it might, you know, open your eyes to different things that you hadn't considered. And I think the last piece of advice I would offer is, someone once said, you know, this whole concept of, you know, choice and making decisions. And sometimes I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we have to make a decision. And the mere thought about having to, you know, decide this or decide that creates angst and stress. And someone once said to me, and it's, and I reflect on it often when I feel myself getting agitated about a so-called decision, is you actually don't make decisions. You just sit in the situation and absorb the information, and then at the right moment in time, you'll move in the direction that's the right direction for you. So when it comes time to make the decision, it doesn't even feel like that. It's actually just the right way to move. So that for me was
I love
really,
that.
yeah. So sometimes even our inertia is actually a decision. We're deciding to not move. So listen to that and just pay attention to it. And as much as possible, try to eliminate the noise. So speak to people, get different views and inputs. But when it comes time to move in whichever direction feels right for you, just sit quietly with the information you've gathered and go in the direction that feels right for you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is a fabulous way of looking at it. I think that's great advice. And I think, as you said, that conscious choice, communication, so vitally important. But I think you're exactly right on that last point you made about this decision and this, pressure that so many women like, oh my God, I have to make a decision. I have to make it now. It has to be this or this. And I've always been a big advocate of make your own rules, because maybe there's a balance between the two, or maybe it can look totally different to what you thought it might have looked originally. So I think great advice. Love that. Really love that.
Well, I'm just passing it forward. It's been given to me in the past. So
excellent. We love passing stuff forward.
That's it. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I've loved having this chat. I think every time we chat, I learn more and more about you, and makes me love you even more. I think you're amazing.
Likewise.
So thank you, gorgeous, for coming on and chatting to me. I really appreciate it. I love the fact that you do want to share your story and you do want to pass it on to help other women make these decisions.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Tanya, for creating the platform for us. Thank you for creating the platform for us to have these conversations. I think it's incredibly valuable. So big hugs to you.
Thank you. That means a lot. And it does, when I have these conversations with women and they say that, like, that just gets me right here, because that's the whole reason why I'm doing this is to allow people to have these conversations about this big topic, which is life-changing, as we know. But thank you. Loved everything that you said. Loved hearing more about that journey for you. And yeah, guys, this is gonna be on the YouTube channel as well, so it'll obviously stay on the Facebook page. But thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
Likewise. Thanks, Tan. Love you, babe.
Bye.